In case you don't know, this channel motto is to not post things that aren't confirmed yet in the game. The names that I'm going to mention next are units that are already confirmed to be in the game. For more exact, they are already in the CN version of this game. One thing to underline here is that we just don't know when they will come to global. So I want you to take a huge grain of salt first, cause the intention of this video is not to spread rumors on when their banner is going to come, but more of an analysis of whether they are worth summoning or not. I believe the next unit that some people are worried about is Factor Clarice. But the thing is, we already got the two most important Factor units in this game, and that is Factor Neo and Factor Hokuto. Factor Neo is good thanks to her resurrection, making her a somewhat annoying unit to deal with in PvP if you build her right. And Factor Hokuto is literally the most important Factor unit in this game, as she will make all bosses a cakewalk. But what about Factor Clarice? Within my analysis, I can only say that the only reason you want to pull for her is only if you like her design. Strictly speaking, she is purely a PvP unit as almost all bosses are immune to stun and freeze. So outside of PvP, she is hardly seeing any light of use. One thing that makes Factor Clarice shine would be her passive. When the battle starts and before whichever unit's turn, she will cast a skill that will cause a takedown and buff block for one turn. The way it works is like Lobelia S3 where the debuff will apply before it hits. So the sad part about this skill is that, while her R2 will make this skill ignore status resistance, this skill doesn't have any dispel whatsoever before landing the debuff, which means immunity is enough to block her. And to activate her S2 passive additional attack, she needs an enemy to be under freeze debuff. So if the enemy team has no freeze debuff, then her additional attack wouldn't work. It is even more sad knowing that her S3 penetration requires the enemy to be under freeze or stun debuff, and the ignore status resistance and immunity part from her S3 also requires the enemy to be under the status of stun and 3 other debuffs. If you are familiar with Spaz from Epic 7, then you can think of Factor Clarice as him. So to run Factor Clarice, you need a specific team that can support her. In this scenario, Factor Clarice is bound to be with Pavonis if you want to fully utilize her S3 or with Priscilla or Milfus, although a regular Hokuto can take benefit of her green element party and is enough to stun her for one turn. Which is ironic as Factor Clarice is a unit that boasted about freeze and stun, yet aren't immune to those debuffs where she specializes in. So my take on this is that if you don't like her design, then you can pretty much skip her banner altogether. The only reason that you want to pull for her is because of the waifu reason, or you just want to collect her, or just as an extra unit for RTA. R2 will be her bare minimum for PvP. Lastly, there are two other units that I really like to mention here, but unfortunately the info about them is still really vague as the narratives pretty much change from one place to another. Personally, my focus for now will be to just save for the next Mega Armor series, despite all the possible regular banners that will pop in between. Mainly because I don't think it is necessary to pull for them, as there are plenty of old units that we can use to counter them.